Hey everyone, happy Thursday. It is the last day in April. Here we are, day 2 on more angles related to a circle. So if we review what we know, based on the vertex location, we know how to find the angle measures. So if it's at the center, the angle measure is equal to the arc in degrees. Remember, you have this in your yellow pages, so you can skip this part if you want. Vertex location is on the circle. It's half the arc. Inside the circle, 1/2 the sum of the arcs, and outside the circle, 1/2 the difference of the arcs. Okay? All right. So here we go. Some interesting angles related to circle problems. So find angle N and angle L. So if you want to pause, feel free to pause and try it out and then see what happens. All right, so I'm going to look at this a couple different ways. So if I know angle V is 120, that inscribed angle means that this part of the circle is 240, which means the rest is 120. So when I look at angle N opens up to the 120. See? So the measure of angle N is half of 120 because the vertex is on the circle, so 60 degrees. Now, if I take the same idea, but for angle L, well, this part of the circle, because angle U is 80, this arc is 160. So the rest is 200, which means that angle L, should look at that, it's an inscribed angle that opens up to this arc. Means that angle L is half of 200, so 100 degrees. So I'm going to actually write that in the picture here. So something interesting that you should note is the opposite angles are subs. And that's always going to be true. So opposite angles of an inscribed quadrilateral are subs. Okay? That's pretty cool. All right, number 2. If angle C is Y and arc AB is X, can you find the numerical value of X plus Y? So this is kind of a neat one. So you don't actually need to know what X and Y are, but you can put in some values and see what you come up with. But if arc AB is X, the rest of it must be 360 minus X. And since this vertex is outside of the circle, we're going to take the difference of the arcs. So 1/2. So measure of angle C equals 1/2 the two arcs. 360 minus X, which is 1, minus X, the little one. And angle C is the same as Y. So this is good. I'm just going to simplify the right-hand side. Distribute the half. So I have 180 minus X, and I want to find out what X plus Y is, so I'm actually going to move the X over. So what this tells me is X plus Y is 180 all the time. So these two are always supplementary, so that's cool. The tangent angle, because it's two tangents that make up the angle, is sup to its intercepted arc. So intercepted minor arc. So that's pretty neat. So these two together have to equal 180. All right? You can think of that as our ice cream cone angle as well. All right, 2 more practice. Given angle GKD is 80, which means this is 80, and angle R is 32, and I have BG congruent to AD, which means those are congruent as well. Find the measure of all arcs and angles in the diagram. So I'm going to do that in different color. So that arc I'm going to call X. This one we're going to call Y. Alright, we did something like this where we had a system. So in our homework earlier this week. So what I know is X plus Y, half of that has to equal 80. Since the vertex is inside the circle. And if I double both sides, that means X plus Y equals 160. Then I'm going to do the same for angle R. 1/2, but R is outside the circle, so it's 1/2 X minus Y equals 32. If I double both sides, I'm going to do times 2. Get X minus Y equals 64. And then I'm going to solve. So those cancel, those Y's, so 2X equals 224. Let me just double check that. Got it. Divided by 2, so X is 112. So that's super helpful. That means we can find out what Y is. So X plus Y equals 160, so 112 plus Y equals 160, so Y equals 48. So this equals 48 degrees. We just find all the angles and arcs. Alright, so arc AD has to be the same as arc BG, so I can subtract the other 2 that we just found. We get 200, and since it's split between the 2, get 100 for arc AD and arc BG. So 100 degrees, 100 degrees. If I go in here, these are subs. Oops. So these are each 100. There's actually other sets of angles you could find. If you haven't looked at these yet, you have an inscribed angle here that opens up to 48. So this must be half, so that's your 24. We unhighlight that. You have another inscribed angle that opens up to the same arc of 48, so this is also 24 because it's half of that. And you could do the same on the other side. So here's your arc that opens to 112. Here's your angle. Half of 112 is 56. And then we'll do it again here. 56. So I think that's all we can find of that. All right, last one. Number 4, I'd pause here and see if you could figure it out, but label the picture first. Okay, this should say arc. I don't know why it goes away all the time. All right, this is an inscribed angle. It's vertex on the circle, so if I double angle B, it should equal the arc. Alright, so this is a little bit of harder algebra. So we're just going to work it out using the quadratic formula, okay? Or factoring, but I think quadratic formula you're probably a little bit more familiar with at this point. Move everything over. One side equals 0, so I've got 3x squared minus 17x minus 28. And I'm going to write here on the side the quadratic formula. If you have standard form here, so something like we have to the left, one side equals 0, then x equals opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so here's a, here's b, here's c. x equals opposite of b, so positive 17 instead of negative, plus or minus the square root of negative 17 squared, and that parentheses is important to make that a positive number. Minus 4 times 3 times negative 28 all over, oops, 2 times 3. I might need to scroll down for more paper. Alright, so let's figure out what's in the under the radical there. Whoops, I typed the wrong thing. Alright, when I multiply that all out, I get 17 plus or minus the square root of 625 all over 6. So I get x equals 17 plus or minus 25 over 6. And then at this point, this plus or minus, we deal with it now. So we just brought it down the whole time. Now we deal with it. So we've got x can be 17 plus 25 divided by 6, or, that's how you get your two answers, x equals 17 minus 25 over 6. And we'll just calculate those out. 17 plus 25 is 42. So 42 over 6, so x is 7. Or x equals negative 8 over 6. Or x equals negative 1.3 repeating. Now we're going to look back at the question. Find the value of x in the measure of angle b. It has to be the positive answer, otherwise we get a negative angle. And the measure of angle b equals, we just plug it back in. 7 squared plus 7 minus 12. 7 squared minus 7, or plus 7, minus 12 is 44 degrees. Alright, nice job. Be good and have fun at eSchool.